for students. Explain to you a little bit about how I've come to this and why I feel that it is an urgency for which we have to address. I just came from Washington, D.C. I serve on what's called the 21st Century Commission on the Future of Community Colleges. And what we're attempting to do is to help make recommendations on what the future of community colleges could and should be going forward. But there's a sense of urgency right now that I've never seen before. And that's what I want to share with you, why completion is all so important. The United States has fallen from number 1 in the world to now being number 16. Just last year, we were saying number 12. We've fallen from number 1, 12, to 16 in the industrialized countries with a percentage of our population having earned a higher education credential. So I want you to think about what that means. It's not just a statistic. What this means is that we have fallen behind other emerging and developing countries in terms of workers and skilled workers. We're right now facing one of the most prolonged recessions in our history. Unemployment persistently high at over 9%. But did you know that today there are over 600,000 manufacturing jobs that are unfilled? There are 500,000 jobs in the healthcare industry that are unfilled. In the state of Washington alone, there are 27,000 jobs, and we're not talking minimum wage jobs. We're talking about livable wage and higher, $50,000 and up. 27,000 jobs unfilled today. And so we have all this political rhetoric about we need jobs and so forth. The jobs are there. We just don't have the people appropriately skilled to fill those jobs. Now just think for a second. It doesn't take a real true economist, because I'm not one. But if you have over 1.1 million jobs available from what I've just identified for you, think of what we could be doing with regard to unemployment. Think of what that would be doing regarding the deficit, where you have people paying taxes and paying into our tax system. But presently, we don't have that. What we are doing in many cases is we're having people come to college and we're training them for jobs that don't exist. And when we're talking about workforce, this is something I want each of you to understand, because I didn't understand it when I was a student. When we're talking about workforce, we're not talking about just trades. We're talking about accountants. We're talking about teachers. We're talking about attorneys, researchers, scientists. We are all part of the workforce. But what has changed this time is that we are now competing in a global economy, and we do not have the appropriate workforce to compete. In 7 short years, by 2018, 67%, 2/3 of all the new jobs will require a post-secondary credential. High school graduation won't get it. You'll have to have at least an associate degree to have an entry-level, livable wage job. Now, let's go back. There are over 7 million students like you in community colleges today. 50% of them aspire, when they're going through those doors, to complete a baccalaureate degree. So that's 3.5 million, that's 7, right? What do you think is the percentage of students who actually, in community colleges, that actually complete the baccalaureate degree? 5%? Yeah. Data not too long ago suggested it was 25%. The College Board recently came out and actually said it's 10. So let's look at this now. We have 7 million students in our community colleges taking courses for credit, half of whom aspire to complete a baccalaureate, so now you're down to 3.5. 10% of those actually make it after 6 years. 350,000. Now, how in the world are we going to fill our workforce needs with those kind of numbers? What do you think is the percentage of community college students that are having to take at least one developmental education class? 30? 65%. 65% of all community college students are coming in and having to take at least one developmental education class, and most likely it's going to be in math or it's going to be in writing. Okay? But this is the big black hole. Of these students who are coming in and taking developmental education, if they have to take more than 3 classes, developmental education classes, what do you think is the percentage that actually make it through to taking college level classes? 0. So this is the situation that we have right now. If 65% of all our students are coming in not college ready, and the travesty of this is they've been told they're college ready as they've come through the high school, but they're not. When it comes to taking the placement or assessment tests, they're not ready. And if they have to take 3 and they don't make it, what then is their life going to be like in 5 years? Just remember what I said in terms of by 2018, all new jobs will require a post-secondary credential. So now maybe it paints a picture for you when you hear so many of our leaders saying, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. That's what's happening. It's truly happening. What is about to happen is that this will be the first generation of children who are actually going to grow up and be less educated than their parents. And if you're born in poverty, there's never been a greater likelihood that you're going to always live in poverty than now. Because they can't get across that barrier because we're not actually preparing these students to be college ready. We have more students in higher education than we ever had before, but we're not getting them to the finish line. We pride ourselves in being community colleges and being open access, and that's how we're funded, based on the first 6 weeks of enrollment, but we're not taking care then of what happens after that. And we have to take responsibility for it. How many of you have seen those shows on television where the professor stands in this big auditorium and is filled with all these students on the first day, and the professor says, look to your left and look to your right. Neither one of them are going to be with you at the end of the semester. Great pride with that. You see, that's what's wrong. That's the right to fail. But what we have to do is change our whole philosophy of education, and that is we must provide access, but we also have to provide the opportunity to succeed and the support to succeed. It's going to mean that we're going to have to turn our colleges upside down in terms of how we operate completely, because we're having to do more, serve more with less money. So what that means is we have to basically take the mold and break it and start all over again and figure out how we can do it. But I would suggest that what we really have to do is not point fingers at K through 12 and say, you're sending us all the students who are not prepared. They've got to be prepared or we won't take them. We can't do that. If we did that, think about this. If we did that, think of that population of students today who are not going to make it. And then we're going to end up having to support them because they're not going to be able to actually earn a livable wage. So while we can begin to address the issues of college readiness, we still have this pipeline of people who are coming through for a number of years who are not going to be college ready. And so we have to address that. So what I want you all to think about is this, is that if as a country we do not actually increase the completion rates, it's very clear, I think, from what I've outlined, what the future of our country will be and what it won't be. We can do this, but it's going to take a sense of urgency that we've never addressed before in education. So, for you, right now, what does this mean? Do you have $400,000 to leave on the table? No? If you fail to get your associate degree, compared to an individual, well, let's put it this way, if you get your associate degree compared to an individual who doesn't have a credential, over your lifetime, you will earn $400,000 more. Many of you, how many of you plan to transfer? How many of you plan to probably transfer before you get the associate degree? Go ahead and raise your hand if you plan to. Okay, that's what it costs. If you want to dramatically increase the chance that you'll never get a baccalaureate degree, then transfer early. 85% of the students who transfer with an associate degree will graduate with a baccalaureate degree. If you fail to, you're down to 55%. And it's going to cost you a lot more money. In many states now, if you have your associate degree, by law, the public universities have to accept all the credits. If you transfer with one credit short of that credential, you give the university the license to be able to tell you to take additional classes, repeat classes, and two major factors that lead to people not completing: time and money. Because when you get to the university, guess what? It's going to cost a lot more per course than what you're paying right now. And the more time it takes you, because you're going to have to work longer to pay those bills, the greater likelihood is you'll never complete. But the other thing is this, for those of you who do plan to transfer, many of you may be married, many of you maybe are living at home with your parents. What happens if one of your parents becomes unemployed or becomes ill? And you have to stop out and you have to get a job. You might have 3 years of higher education, but you don't have a credential. You have 2 years of education and an associate degree. Both of you are competing for the same job now because you have to get into the job market. Guess who's going to get that job? It's going to be the one with the credential. Guess what was that? Because the studies show that when it comes to actually earning and getting a job, those students who have an associate degree will be more competitive than those who have actually gone through and with 3 years junior level status, and they're not going to get the job. It's insurance in your back pocket. So protect yourself and protect your future with that. You never know in life what's going to happen. Those are just a few reasons why you need to complete personally. But what I really want you to do is to get this message out to all students with this completion core and help them understand, yes, it's important, you'll make more money. Yes, you'll have a better chance of getting a job. But most importantly, the future of our country is at stake. And I mean that sincerely. If we don't have workers, how are we going to pay for public education in the future? How are we going to pay for education for your children? How are we going to pay for the roads and bridges? How are we going to pay for Medicare and Medicaid with a population that's growing older? Where are the tax funds? Where's the revenue going to come from? You can only cut back so much in terms of the budget. We have to have some increasing resources and revenue there to be able to pay what's going to be coming up for us. So I don't mean to paint a dim picture, but what I know and I believe is that Phi Beta Kappa members, and I know that you understand the seriousness of this, and I know if any people can make a difference in shaping what's going to happen in the days ahead, then you all can. It's that serious of a situation. That said, that's my message to you all. Now, I would be happy to entertain any questions that you might have about any of the statistics that I've laid out, anything like that I've said.